sort of background of knowing this, and I did read a little bit of non-duality and everything. There was always this concept of they call it Shiva Shakti or Brahma and the manifest, and it was always like, okay, Shiva Shakti, and then doing my practices, I'll go back to that point of Shiva. Those of you who are um, knowledgeable of those Indian concepts. So I was doing a lot of practices, and then it all stopped. Maybe I've said too much, but um, yeah, it all ended. I was sitting in my room and I disappeared. And then it was recognized that there was never a Simon, because it wasn't an event. It was something. It wasn't something. It was just dropping. You could say recognizing even the death. It was the death of the old Simon, and it's the old Simon, and the recognition that there never was the Simon yet.
Good. Nonetheless, suddenly there was a body in a void, in a space with sensations, and there was response. And then there's the attachment to the my understanding is this space of no Simon was peaceful and warm and cozy. It didn't have the anguish and anxiety and dissatisfaction of mortal existence. So it was like hopping out of a warm bath.
Well, you're trying to describe the unknowable. So we can describe. I can't tell you this. I can't really tell you this, but you're trying to describe the unknown. Really, it was a non-event. It was
an anticlimax.
Yeah, in a way, it was kind of, oh, this is it. Okay, you know what I mean? And then, like, you know, uh the me, you could say, wanted to come back. There was like a year, where I just couldn't even do yoga, because every time I got on my mat, there was this me that this little virus thing, insignificant. But saying that, what you're trying to describe is the event, which was a non-event. It was a no thing as everything.
So here is witness bearing witness to the question of why is there a need to act out and scratch? What's the call? What's the call to?
No, there's no reason. There's no meaning or purpose to anything. And I'll repeat that again, there's no meaning or purpose to anything. So when you scratch, it's you don't scratch, but the me claims to be sitting on a seat. So there's a seat, there's me, there's a car, I'm driving my car, and that is an illusion.
So the car being driven not into a tree, but between the trees and between the other things that would interfere with the passage of a car, that's coming from just purely intelligence. That's just the intelligence.
That's right. Yes, Mark. It's the brain. As a, like, we're no different than animals, right? The the fox will go hunting, the deer will go doing its thing, but animals don't exist in a separate state. Um, it seems only the human being lives in this separate state. So what's driving the car is this brain, apparent body driven by the brain, which is an amazing, we tend to have the most evolved brain of any species on Earth. And it can do amazing things, drive a car, drive an airplane. It could create vaccines. It can build skyscrapers, fly to the moon. It's pretty amazing. But the person thinks that it's my brain. It's my uh, brain. I'm driving the car, and that's the illusion. There's driving the car, sitting on a seat, but so when that ends, when that separation ends, it's just a relief. It's just whoa, it's like wow, all that seeking, all those trips to India, all those like whatever seeking, and I had another life before my yoga. I had this wonderful music life, and that was, you could say a little bit naughty because we did a lot of weird things. And prior to that, at another life, you could say, but it was always this. There was always a dissatisfaction, wanting more, wanting more, wanting more, and that was, yeah, you could say there's relief. There's more of a little bit more calm. And things still come and go. Fear may come, thoughts may come, but there's no one here that could hold on to them. So this is freedom.
It doesn't sting as much then.
It's a good word, sting. Yeah, sting. So yeah, yeah. Not everyone is going through stinging, like some people are quite you could say, content to some degree. They may have this or that, but it's still whatever. The me still lives in that separate self, which creates a need. I need this, I need that. So it goes about thinking, foolishly, that it goes about getting it, and it goes on getting it. So it's a I think the end of the end of me cannot be taught or learned, as many are trying on the internet these days to teach people how to achieve some form of satisfaction, or other things, simply because those things don't last very long. And so, I've experienced it, but people do wellness groups, and in a short while, they're seeking another wellness group. So it's this endless need, and all that drops away. It doesn't, but still, there's need for food, there's need for petrol, there's need to pay the rent, but that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I use the word sting because I bring it back to experiences of the physical body. But
Yeah,
then let's say hunger pangs of having an empty stomach. It
yeah,
first growls and there's the feeling of, oh, I could be hungry. And then it starts to burn and sting and make you feel nauseous. And the only way to correct that for the experienced body is to take a meal, or to relieve that through drinking water. So not being able to sit with the pain of emptiness, but needing to have a meal. And then, of course, it can be overdone. There's this feeling of satiation, of emptiness through consumption. So then one can overconsume because the effect creates negative feelings of bloating,
Well,
blockages, excess.
and somebody may drop away, it still has its tendencies to its preferences. So being Italian, I like olives. I like Italian food, and and that is my preference. And um, overeating is not a good or bad thing. Yeah. So as a me, then it could see that as a state that it's in. I'm too overweight, I'm underweight, whatever. And just so yeah, so you can see how the me just built up on its relevancy, and it's got to look good, it's got to look this, like that. Yeah. So but preferences are different. Preferences are natural. Apparent what we've been preference with.
Oh, there is.
Olive oil, or in India you'd probably use a different oil,
Ghee,
which is
if you're
nice too.
lucky. If you're lucky, you can have some ghee. Otherwise, maybe mustard seed oil or
Yeah,
peanut
man.
oil.
Yeah, yeah. They use
Yeah.
a lot of. I mean, they do a lot of frying, but no
So,
one.
well, frying's good to eliminate pathogens and bacteria. So, if you don't have refrigeration and good hygiene, frying the pathogens out of things is a intelligent practice for preservation of longevity and freedom from immediate suffering of food poisoning. But it can create excess of oil, can't it, and trans fats. So every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Every
No.
attempt to preserve and save can have its consequences.
Well,
So that
for me, that would definitely be the case. That there's a reaction and an action. I mean, the if you hurt your hand, you start bleeding, you could say that's an action reaction, but it's not really happening. So
bleed
so
out. Yeah. Well,
it
I
can
can see.
happen. It can
Yeah, I
happen.
can. There's of course the great story of our compatriot Christ who bled out on the cross. But it took a long time. He just let it happen, and there is this quality of martyrdom, and then even the selection of there's the quality. You spoke of tastes, that these have been things that they're not really chosen, like being an Italian who likes olives, eating olives, which makes me hungry. I'd love an Italian salad with some crusty bread now and
Mm.
some olives and a minestrone soup to dip it in. But there is different qualities of preference, surely. Like one can, if we stick to eating, one can go and eat from an abattoir where you hear the screams of the beings being prepared for the plate, or you could eat at go to a place where they pick organic fruit and vegetables from the garden and prepare it there. It'll attract a different quality of company and a different experience through that choice. Don't we have the choice to choose which cuisine we're going to participate in? To,
Well, but perhaps you're not hearing the message. The message is saying there's no you. So you would, you know, I'm sorry to say there's no choice.
yeah, it's
There's
choiceless.
no choice. I mean, you get the preference of having a cup of coffee or Earl Grey tea. We could say that's a preference, but it's only apparent. It's not. It's not really happening. There's no use. So that would just happen without Mark being there. So eating meat or not eating meat, is not really an issue.
Mm.
You're talking about unconditional love. Unconditional love can appear as uh, abattoirs inhumanely killing animals. It can appear as uh, the war in Gaza. It could appear talking about what can not be known, but is at the same time very, very unknowable, and it's radical. It can be anything. It
Mm.
seems anything can happen. It's okay, anarchy itself.
My
So
understanding is it's all happening too in its total diversity. It's all happening, and
our
there is neither good nor bad under the sun, but it's the mind that makes it so.
correct. Yeah, that's who was
So
it?
the man,
Shakespeare, was it?
so the mantra goes.
Correct. Yeah, there's neither good or bad, except mine makes it so, Shakespeare. But you gotta, this is it's no thing, no thing as everything apparently happening. Yeah.
Mm.
And in that, the me takes a position. So as I said before, in that no thing is everything, you could have a state where there's this separation and everything seems to be real. This is my life. This is my computer. This is what's happening. These are my eyes. And that's just a dream, beautiful dream.